Escape with API Nation. Today I am going to show you how you can connect SkySlope to Slack so that as soon as a transaction is created, as soon as a transaction is moved into pending or closed, any of those situations, you can set up a connection so that it automatically sends a message right into the Slack channel where it's most pertinent. Super easy to set up. It's going to let your office work a lot more seamlessly, smoother, faster, so you can create more deals. Let me show you how this works. First, you're going to go to apination.com and you're going to click on Start Syncing. You can see a ton of different apps you can set up, marketing apps, productivity apps. And for Slack specifically, we're going to use this new Webhooks tool we just released on API Nation. So first things first, we're going to sign into our API Nation account. If you don't have one, click here to sign up. It's totally free. I'm going to sign in. You can sign in with your email and password, or you can sign in with a Google account if you've already done that. Once you're signed in, you're going to click on Apps to go back to the Apps page, and you're going to search for Webhooks. There it is. I'm going to click on that. And if you're not familiar with Webhooks, I'll link to a video down below we did previously that describes exactly what they are, how you can use them, and how other people are using them in their business. Simply put, it's a direct connection you can plug into a different app so that it automatically sends information to API Nation, which we can then hand to any of these other apps, or sends information out from API Nation, information that came from any of these apps. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set up a webhook into Slack right now. So I'm going to click on Connections and I'm going to add an account. You can see there's inbound and outbound. Inbound would be if I want information coming in and I'm going to hand it off to one of those other apps. This is going to be outbound because I have information coming in from SkySlope and I'm going to hand it off to Slack. It's going to go out to Slack. We're going to name this webhook label. I'm going to call it SkySlope and I'm going to call it Closed Transaction. We're going to set this alert up specifically when a transaction closes in SkySlope. Now it's going to ask for a webhook URL, so we're going to go get that from Slack. So I'm going to move over to Slack. One way to get there is in your Slack channel. You can come all the way down here to the apps area and click on Add Apps. And then it's going to offer you a bunch of different apps you could use, but I'm going to go to the app directory because that's what I need to make this connection. I'm going to build it. And you might be thinking already, I'm not building an app. That's way too much work. Don't worry, this will just take a second. This is just what it's called when you add in a webhook to Slack. So you're going to create an app. You're going to create it from scratch. And we're going to name it. We're going to call this SkySlope Closed Transactions. There we go. And you're going to tell it, all right, where am I sending these alerts to? I'm going to send it to our workspace and hit Create App. Great. So now you can add a bunch of stuff to your app if you want. We don't worry about all that. All we're doing is this webhooks piece. So I'm going to click on that. Activate incoming webhooks. There's a bunch of information. This we don't have to worry about either. I'm just going to add a new webhook to workspace. Cool. So we're adding it to the workspace we specified. And it's going to ask, what channel do I want to send those alerts to? I have a test channel set up, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in there and hit allow. Okay, cool. So we've set up this webhook. It's sending it to that channel. I'm going to go ahead and copy this URL. If you remember, that is what we are here for in the first place. Go back to API Nation and paste in the URL. Cool. Now we have the request method post. Perfect. The body type is JSON. Again, that's exactly what we're looking for. So we're going to generate that webhook. So there we go. We have a webhook. It's connected to Slack. In fact, I'm actually going to rename this Slack and SkySlope because I could use this for a bunch of different alerts. Like I said, I could do it for pending transactions. I can do it when a transaction is closed. I can do it when a transaction is new. I'm just going to create different syncs for each of those. For this example, we're just going to do closed. So once we have our webhook created, I'm going to go over here to integrations. And I'm going to scroll on down to SkySlope. So we're connecting that webhook with SkySlope. You can see SkySlope can send over participants. So if you want information about somebody who's a part of the transaction, or it can send over transaction information. We're doing transaction information, so I'm going to click on that. If you haven't connected SkySlope yet, just hit connect. It's going to give you some information you need from SkySlope to make the connection. If you need help finding it, just click the links here It's really easy to locate. Once you fill all that out, you'll hit connect and it's ready to go. I've already made the connection, so I'm going to use that connection I've set up previously. And then you can see with the webhooks, it says you set up this webhook, Slack and SkySlope. Is that what you want to use? And that is what I want to use. So I'm going to select that. Perfect. Now a few configurations to create the sync. I'm syncing SkySlope transactions. Do I want to sync all on first run, or do I only want to sync transactions from a certain date? I really don't want everything pushed into Slack. I don't want a bunch of messages from all the transactions going in there. So I'm just going to say, let's just do it from yesterday. That sounds good to me. And I'm going to hit subscribe. That creates the sync. And now I'm just going to do a little bit of information here so I can describe exactly what I want sent over and exactly what information. So I'm going to scroll on down here. This is exactly what we set up on the last page. I'm going to come down here to filter. And again, we're looking for closed transactions. So I'm going to come here to filter, and that's where I can really specify exactly what is happening with that transaction so I can send over the most accurate note into the Slack channel. So you can filter based on any of this stuff. So if you're only sending it over for certain agents, or if you're only sending it over for certain zip codes or any of that, escrow, I'm going to go with status, contains, and closed. Save that. All right, and then I'm going to come down here to mapping, and this is basically saying, all right, what do you want this message to be? So first we're going to create a field, and it's saying, what is the field name? And if we go back to that Slack window where it says a bunch of information about what's going to happen, you can see here's an example of what it's going to send over, and you can see here is that field information. It's a field called text, and then it has some text. That's great to know, but all we really care about is that the field is called text. So I'm going to go back to API Nation, and I'm going to say it's a field called text, all lowercase. There we go. And now we're going to put in the text that we want. So I'm going to say, heads up, a transaction has just closed in SkySlope. And then I can hit return and add information like address, hit the plus sign, and put in address stuff. So street number plus street address plus unit plus city and so on. I can also say buyer is buyer first name, buyer last name, and I can say seller first name, seller last name. Maybe I want to put their emails and phones too. I could do that. But if this looks good, if there's any other information you want to pop in here, you can absolutely do that. But I think this is good for me. I'm going to go up to the top and activate this sync. So the sync is now running. Now, when I close a transaction in SkySlope, let's hop in here. Let's find this Broadway transaction. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Yep, looks good. So the transaction just closed. Now, within 10 minutes, the sync will go ahead and check in with SkySlope and say, hey, anything closed lately? And if it did, it'll send a message to Slack. So I'm going to come over here to Slack, look at my webhook test channel, whatever channel you've hooked it up into. There it is. SkySlope, closed transaction. Heads up, a transaction is just closed in SkySlope. This address, here's the buyer, here's the seller, and any other information you wanted to include in that Slack alert. You could even put stuff that you know Slack will use, like at here, or at all, or at Gabe. I'm Gabe, so it'd be alerting me. So that's it. That's how you connect SkySlope to Slack. It's going to make your business, your office run a lot smoother. You're not going to miss any of these transactions moving through your pipeline. If they close, if they're pending, if they create a new transaction, whoever needs to know can be alerted immediately in their Slack channel. If you have any questions or need any assistance setting up this sync, give us a phone call, shoot us an email. We're API Nation, and we're connecting the world's applications.